Joining me now is one of the Nigerians studying in one of the universities in Ukraine, in Kherson to be specific. Linus Bakar has been back for weeks now. Linus, thank you for joining me this morning.
Good morning. It's my pleasure.
Now, I know you must have heard, this communique. You may have read it online or probably heard it from, some of your colleagues or your friends. I understand that, you've not had any interruption to your schoolwork, except that you're just not there physically in Kherson.
Yes, no, I was studying in Sumi, not Kherson.
Sumi, I beg your
Yes,
pardon. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We recently, I think 3 weeks ago, we started the online mode of study, and it's been good. Nothing has changed. It's just that we're not there physically, but we're taking test modules from the online platform.
Yeah, and that's just really different, isn't it? How are classes being set up? Do you have a schedule every day, a time when you sit down? Do you also get assignments and stuff like that? And then where are your lecturers?
Yes, normal schedules, normal school schedules, nothing has changed. So every period we have classes. Of course, it's a bit kind of tough for medical students, but back in 2020, when the coronavirus was really, really high, we resorted to the same online platform. So it is nothing new, but it's very good. And most of our lecturers are still back in Sumi. The ones that I know of, they are still in Sumi. They didn't leave Sumi.
Does it feel a bit surreal, seeing your classmates from around the world? I mean, given, the circumstances under which you left, there was a war, of course, the Russian invasion, and then just a few months ago, your lives were really normal, and now then you had hopes of graduating. Speaking of which, is that still on course?
Yes, yes. I think schools are working on seeing how the final year students can finish up. So from them, nothing has changed. It's normal study, just that it's just the online platform.
So it is interesting. Sumi hasn't really been in the news for a while now. I mean, I mentioned Kherson, and that's because, Russia claims to have taken over the city. But Sumi, there's hardly been any news, I think, ever since you came back. Haven't really heard anything, about the situation there. So what are you hearing as regards, what's been happening, the Russian attacks in the area, how civilians are, living their lives back where you were coming from just a couple of months ago?
Yes. Yeah. Just as you rightly said, Sumi has not been on the news because things are very, very calm. I have a lot of friends in Sumi, my teachers in Sumi, so we are communicating. In fact, from what they've told me, things are back to normal in Sumi. Just that they're saying it's not just safe for anyone to return yet, but I mean, life has gone back to normal in Sumi.
Have you been following, what's been going on in Ukraine with the Russian invasion? Because, apart from schooling, I mean, this was a place, if, given the right circumstances, you probably would have stayed on, furthered your studies, probably gone on to a doctorate or something else. Are you also following what's happening there, and you're seeing what's happening in the news, and you're reading, what's been going on? What are your thoughts on how far and how long this invasion has taken?
Yes, I've been following the news a lot. Just as rightly said, like for myself, I did my bachelor's degree, my master's degree there in Sumi. So there's some sort of attachment to the city and the country. Speaking of whether we will return soon or not, I really think since the so-called military operation has reached a stage to which they are in the eastern part of Ukraine. I think the other parts of Ukraine are relatively becoming safe. But of course, until there is a ceasefire, it is not safe for anyone to want to return yet. Even the authorities there are telling us that yes, they hope that it all ends soon, but if not, um, we'll still be here, pending when the whole thing ends.
So I noticed that you're being careful and you're saying a special military operation, and that's Russia speak for the invasion. Most people in Ukraine will call it, of course, a war, which is what it is. I mean, another country's forces invading your country is a war, and your forces are fighting those forces. You're Nigerian, so I suppose you stand on the fence on this. But given what's been going on in Ukraine, perhaps if you had stayed back, Linus, would there have been anything, any role that you think that you could have played, you know, during this crisis? Do you think that you may have, I don't know, maybe joined a volunteer group probably to help out with things, or probably even joined the civilian defense forces?
Okay, well, I use the word so-called military operation, of course. We all know that it is a war. We all know that it is really, really uncalled for, not in this century. Uh, if I was going to join, if I was in Ukraine, I mean, it is really, really relative, but I really think it is something that it is very pathetic because I have friends that have been affected by the whole war, and it will only move me to compassion to try to see what I can do, humanly possible, and not to meddle into the whole thing. But Ukraine has given some of us the education that we went there for. So I could have helped in one way or the other, but we're back in Nigeria, and I think it's really safe for us at the moment.
So I know that some of the Nigerian students stayed back in Europe. They went to other parts of Europe to continue their studies. Some stayed back in Poland, some in Germany, finding their way across Europe just to continue their studies. Many didn't come back, but you came back. And now the federal government says, that you can continue your education in other countries in Europe who have similar curricula with Ukraine. Is that a consideration for you?
Uh, Personally, I think at some point I would have to start considering it. But for now, I'm really optimistic that the war would end soon, because I just have a year plus just to finish my PhD. So I would just have to wait a little bit. But if it's taking longer, I would have to start considering other options.
Yeah, but how is that? Because you say you're already continuing classes online, and then you're still hoping to graduate, but you said nothing really has changed because during the pandemic, this was the norm, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, we classes, everything. I defended one of the papers I wrote the other day online, and it was just as almost as if it was physical. So we would continue the online mode. I will continue the online mode, depending when it is safe to return.
Okay, but it's possible your graduation will probably take place virtually. You do understand that, the way things are going. How do you feel about that?
Yes, it is very possible. Well, the world has changed, the world has evolved, and this is our reality now. I don't think it will it will change anything so long as I'm going to get my certificate. I think nothing has changed, and it is a valid certificate.
So, Lana, since you've been back, and I know that you've been taking classes online, what else have you been doing with your time?
Um, well, it's a good opportunity to be back. I mean, bonding with family, trying to reconnect, because a lot of people that I know, it's really really been a long time they returned to Nigeria. But me personally, I've been connecting more with families, relating with people, and you know, just basically that's just it.
Yeah, but it might appear to some that you have perhaps a lot of free time on your hands. So, what do you do with that time?
I don't really have full times like that, because most times classes are 5 hours or 4 hours, and then after that, of course, we have probably some assignments to do or a presentation to prepare for. Uh, So it's not as if there is a lot of free time like that.
Well, Linus, we won't pry too much into your private life. Thanks again for joining us this morning, and
Thank you
we
so
wish you
much.
all the best and happy graduation in the near future.
Thank you so much.